Well, ladies and gentlemen, another day, another very unfortunate poll. We've got it this time from Echelon Insights. They've come out and they've got very bad news for Donald Trump. Oh no, they've got Kamala Harris up by 7 points over Trump. And they according to their sample, it's 46% Democrat, 46% Republican. Oh my God. Wow. Kamala Harris up by 7. Look at their last poll. It had Trump up by 1. So that's an 8-point shift in the span of a month. Let's take a look at their crosstabs and see how ridiculous this actually is. You've got the full field, Harris up by 5, generic ballot, Democrats up by 5. I think pretty much everyone agree. Well, not everyone, because you do have some differing things when it comes to the generic ballot, but you could be looking at maybe Dem +1. Maybe not. Maybe that's like a conservative. I think it's probably like tied to Republican +1, honestly. You look at the Gallup poll. Favorabilities, let's take a look at this. Let's see anything abnormal. Waltz +8, that's realistic. Harris +4, that's not. Pretty much, I mean, the polls that I've seen from Harris in terms of her favorability have been -1 to even, +4. I mean, I guess you could say, yeah, maybe it is. You want to know what's really inaccurate, though? Donald Trump -14. So what they're doing here is they're basically saying this is a repeat of 2020. Because if you remember back in 2020, Biden had like a +4, +5 approval rating. Trump was like -14, -15. And they're saying this is a repeat. Well, we just got polls that said, and there's some pollsters, reputable pollsters, that say Trump has a better approval rating than Harris. And this poll says that Harris is 18 points better than Trump in terms of approval. I mean, if that's true, then yeah, I'd probably agree Harris should be up by maybe 4 or 5 nationally. I mean, this poll has her up by 7, which I think is ridiculous, but this is not true. Trump is not -14 in terms of favorability. This sample is just horrible data. Trump is realistically anywhere from like -6 to -9 in terms of favorability. Harris, I would say, is probably around, it really depends. You could say like -2 to -3, but they're not that far off. So that's really the first thing that I look at. You look at independents, they go for Harris by 10 points. That's not going to happen. I can guarantee it. I think Trump ends up winning independents by 4 or 5 points. But Harris winning them, let alone winning them by 10 points, it's not going to happen. But how about this? Democrats going for Harris 98% to 1%. Remember, Harris was not picked by the Democratic voters. She was installed. Meanwhile, Trump, who was voted for and did go through a primary process, only gets 92% of Republicans. So they're saying that, Harris, I guess she gets rewarded for not going through any primary process. And to me, I think there's no way that it's this much of a discrepancy to where Democrats are going to Harris at a 98% rate versus Republicans going for Trump at a 92% rate. Normally, it's only like a 1% difference in terms of the discrepancy. It's not a 6-point difference. So to me, that's more bad polling. They've got Harris leading moderates by 22. This is the big one. They have Kamala Harris leading men by a point. That's impossible. It's not going to happen. I guarantee it. I think Trump will win men by over 10 points. They've got her in this data sample winning men by a point, and then obviously winning women by 11 points. I guess that's more realistic. I've seen polls where she wins women anywhere from like 7 to 12 points, so they've got her up by 11. That is what it is, but the men is just ridiculous. 1 point, it's just not going to happen. Also, age 65 and over. By the way, this is something that we are seeing more and more of. I will say there's no way she's going to win seniors by 15 points. But we are seeing older people go with Harris and not Trump, which kind of kills the whole narrative that Republicans are just these old racists when, you've got Democrats winning them. Makes no sense. Also, Trump only winning white people by 7 points. That's not going to happen. He's going to win it by more. Another thing, Harris winning Hispanics by 21. I don't think she wins Hispanics by that much either. When it comes to that, Trump winning no college by 3%, that's total bullshit. So you look at this and they say, oh, Republican 46, Democrat 46. That's how they're sampling. Come on, this is ridiculous. You look at all these things, they're just total outliers. Harris +4, Trump -14. Harris winning independents by 10. Harris winning men. Harris winning 65 and older by 15 points. This is all total crap. It's another crap poll. And this is honestly what we're used to at this point. It is unfortunate, but you look at the crosstabs, it just, it exploits it. You've got Mark Cuban spiraling out of control now. Cuban is ranting and taking shots at Trump about January 6th, saying, oh, he called Pence a pussy and everything. I wonder if Trump knows that, or I wonder if Cuban knows that Trump called for the National Guard 3 days before January 6th to keep everything safe, and the liberals denied it. He probably doesn't know that. But look at Cuban. Remember, Cuban is the wannabe Elon Musk, and now it looks like he's copying Steve Jobs with that attire. I don't know what's going on with Cuban. We do also have, this is another poll I wanted to talk about. It is Marist, and it's graded an A plus. So this, oh my God, they must be amazing, right? They're graded an A plus. So they've got North Carolina as a tie, Georgia Trump +1, Arizona Trump +1. This pollster that's graded as an A plus was horrifically inaccurate in 2020. And I understand they grade these things based on a number. Like when you're grading a pollster, it's how transparent you are, your track record, things like that. They go back multiple election cycles. But I mean, come on. If they got the last election wrong by 7 points, how in the actual hell can they be an A plus? The whole idea is the final poll versus the actual result. And let's take a look at how they did. Here it is exactly. Literally every poll that they've released, Marist College has shown an improvement. But let's just take a look at what they had in 2020. So they had Biden +11. Was this their final poll? I think this was their final poll. Biden +11, he really won by 4. They had Wisconsin, Biden +10, he won by less than a point. Pennsylvania, Biden +5, he won by like 2. North Carolina, Biden +6, Trump won the state by 1.5 points. Michigan, Biden +8, he won by 2. Arizona, they had it as a tie, and Biden won it by less than a point. So pretty much all these polls, this is an A+ pollster. This is an A+ pollster. It's like at a certain point, you have to grade based on how well they actually do in terms of their accuracy versus the result. And they're just not accurate. How are they an A+? It makes no sense. They're not an A+. You can't be an A+ if you're this inaccurate. This is absurd. What is the purpose of grading a pollster if you don't grade them based on, at least you have to, if you have a formula and you're like, oh, it's how transparent they are. It's how they do their methodology. But you have to, part of that formula has to be how accurate they are. You cannot give a pollster an A+ grade if they got the last election wrong by 7 points. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And you constantly see this stuff from these liberal pollsters who have just been woefully inaccurate when it comes to polling Trump. Woefully. They'll be 7, 8, 9 points off. Look at ABC News. I mean, it's not even close, and they still get A+ grades. I mean, this is the thing. The polling, it's all the liberal pollsters because they just don't know how to poll Trump supporters, I guess. 2016, they were horrible. 2020, they're horrible. And we're still looking at them and saying, oh my God, they're going to get it right this time. But I mean, honestly, this is good news for Trump because this pollster, which has been very liberal, is saying that Trump is basically tied in a lot of these swing states. So technically, it is good news. But I just wanted to talk about, here's the other swing states, by the way. They've got Michigan +5 for Harris, Wisconsin +1 for Harris, Pennsylvania tied, North Carolina tied, Georgia Trump +1, Arizona Trump +1. I think Georgia and Arizona right now look pretty good for Trump. It feels like Trump's going to win Georgia and Arizona by 3 points each. Georgia, it was an aberration what happened in 2020. They won because of rampant ballot harvesting in inner cities, and the turnout was just ridiculous. We're going to get a much lower turnout, which is going to help, and especially if it's a lower turnout in inner cities, it's going to help Trump in Georgia. And Trump's going to win Georgia by 2.5 to 3 points. I think he wins Arizona by a similar margin. It seems like they're kind of giving up Arizona, the Harris campaign, that is, at least to a degree. Michigan's going to be probably the hardest Rust Belt state for Trump to win. I will say that. But remember, this is a very liberal pollster. But I will agree that Michigan is going to be hard to win. But she's not up by 5 in Michigan. It's got basically Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina tied. North Carolina, I still think is in a good spot right now for Trump. There's work to do there, but I would say Trump is looking pretty good in North Carolina when you factor everything in. Also, he won it in 2020 and 2016. Yes, it was a slimmer margin in 2020, but it is always going to be a swing state. That just is what it is. So North Carolina, I know there are people that say it's not a swing state and Trump's going to win it for sure. But if it's within 2 or 3 points, it is going to be a swing state. But I think Trump wins it. That's the thing. As long as Trump can hold on to North Carolina, take Georgia, he's looking very good. You win Arizona, you've basically got it. You just need one more state after that, and you've got a number of different scenarios. And this would be the math right now. That's with Wisconsin and Michigan going to Harris. She's at 251. That's why North Carolina is so important. If he wins North Carolina, you're looking at a very you're looking at a much easier path for Trump, to where that would get Trump up to around that would get him to 260 or 262, and you'd be at 268 with Nevada. You'd be looking for one more to get to 269, possibly without Pennsylvania. That's why Nebraska second is important, although it doesn't look amazing for Trump in terms of winning that. I also saw a New Mexico poll that came out that had Harris +8, which I think it's pretty, kind of what I expected, honestly, with New Mexico. I think Trump possibly could be within maybe 5 or 6 in New Mexico if he has a good night on election night. But New Mexico very likely will be going, obviously, to the Democrats. It's just going to be, we're going to see the margin come down because it's a border state. I think some of those people realize what a mess the border is with the Democrats, and that's why you're probably going to see a closer New Mexico than we saw, or I would certainly expect to see a closer New Mexico than we saw in 2020. But in general, this video is just to point out how ridiculous. Like, you're giving this pollster an A+. They got everything wrong by 8 points. What are we doing? Why are they getting an A+? If they get, listen, I understand the methodology, that they're transparent, whatever, but we have to at some point grade them based on how well they did in 2020, their final polls versus the actual results. And if they're 5 or 6 points off, how in the hell can you get an A+? You want to give a B-? Okay, maybe. An A+, that's just ridiculous. An A+ is absurd. And then this pollster, I mean, come on, really? You want to take a look at the crosstabs on this with the men going to Harris? I mean, come on, man. This is just, what are we doing? It's just ridiculous. Harris is +7. Yeah, she's winning. She's going to win men, yeah. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.